Welcome to the Radical Lifestyle Podcast, brought to you by Generation to Generation, where you will be inspired by the past, equipped for the present, and prepared for the future as we engage in conversations with people from around the world. Hello everyone, this is Andrew and Daphne from Generation to Generation, and our guests today are Andrew and Tayler Burcham. Now, for people that don't know who you are, could you just say a bit about where you're from and what you do?
We're from the States. We've kind of been all over. We joined the Navy, the U.S. Navy about 10 years ago, which brought us eventually to England, where we met Daphne and Andrew, and it's been great ever since. But since then, we left in 2018, moved to Arizona for a couple of years, but we're currently in Maryland at the moment. We've been married almost 11 years on Friday, actually, and I don't think Tayler remembered.
Oh man, I did not. I was like, Friday.
We have 5 kids ranging from 10 years old to 1 year. Yeah, 1 year old, just turned 1. And so we're just out here working. I'm in the Navy Reserve now, but I'm on kind of long-term orders out in Maryland. And then we're getting ready for a deployment out to Qatar, or Qatar, as some people like to call it.
Qatar in England.
Okay.
What is it?
Which is what counts. Qatar.
Okay.
I think in England it's Qatar. In the US, I think most people that I've heard talk about it say Qatar. But
yeah, Qatar. Yeah.
So, for both of you, you've been 11 years. A lot of that, Andrew, you've had to be away and you've had to come back. There's been a lot of adjustment. You've got marriage. You've got 5 children. I want to talk for a bit about what is it like to have a marriage where you have to navigate all these separations, not only separations, you're moving countries as a family, you're having to resettle, you're having to go somewhere else. Now, I know there's lots of good things about it, as well as lots of challenges, although challenges can be good. Let's start off, first of all, what do you feel your family has benefited? Let's go to the good things.
Military lifestyle.
A military lifestyle, because it's a lifestyle you've chosen, so there has to be lots of good things about it as well.
There definitely has been a lot of good things, and I'm sure we'll get to the challenges. But some of the biggest good things, obviously, you get to travel. We got to live in Florida. We'd never been to that part of the country. We got to live in Washington State. We've never been to that part of the country. Now we're living in Maryland, where we never got to be this part of the country. And you kind of see, the bordering states, that kind of surround it. So you get to see all these new things. Like today, we're headed to Gettysburg and a couple other places that we've never been to. And then one of the best things is the friends you make. A lot of the friends you make are long-term friendships, and you'll be traveling, going somewhere, and you're in Florida, and you're like, oh, we know people in Florida, so you go see them and you hang out, and it feels like nothing changed and that kind of stuff, and you have people all over the world. Just tons of friends and stuff. And then the one I always kind of say, I guess, is although it's not fun to be deployed, obviously, and away from family, but the whole homecoming thing is a very unique thing that I greatly enjoy, and coming home to the family after being 6, 8, 9 months away, and getting the whole, tears running and the kids running up to you and all that kind of stuff I wouldn't say it makes the deployment worth it, but it is a very good benefit of coming home, and being a part of the military.
So an appreciation of each other probably is something that where if you don't have that, you can just carry on without that appreciation of family, appreciation of each other, and the children appreciation of you as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What about you, Tayler?
But he definitely complained yesterday that he didn't think he was going to have room service on his deployment. So as much as he said he appreciates us, I do not give him room service. So I do think there's been a lot of connections. One thing I think it really makes a family is resilient. If there's anything, these kids are extremely resilient. We're resilient, and that is something that can't just be like you don't just become resilient. You really have to learn how to work through a lot of things. Your communication really has to be able to be worked through. You go through a lot of tough times because for us, I mean, as much as we say, okay, in 10 years or now almost 11 years, I mean, we did, I don't even know, 7 moves, 7 moves. I don't know, about like 7 moves, had 5 kids. We're about to go on our 3rd deployment. Like, that's a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time when you really look at it. And so I know a lot of people I talk to that in 30 years, like, they've never moved, and so it's something that comes with the territory, but I do think it makes our kids stronger. Like, they adapt really well. We adapt really well. We just kind of go full force in. And I think it teaches a lot of life skills and appreciation for other cultures as well, since even when we were overseas, I mean, we were able to go to so many different places. And not that I don't know that our kids are going to remember much of anything over there, but they did learn how to adapt and to just jump into different cultures too, which I don't think is going to go unnoticed you know what I mean? I think they're going to be able to use a lot of these skills as they get older.
It's interesting you use the word resiliency, because that is a word that is kind of out there these days. It's coming more and more to the forefront, and I think particularly through the season that the whole world has been through, resiliency is a huge factor in people that have gone through this period well, and those that have really struggled. And I think resiliency can be learnt, as you said, and certainly bringing in the adapting and being able to be creative in the situations that you're in are key factors in resiliency. I mean, have you noticed in yourselves that it has increased your resiliency?
I mean, I have personally,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things, a lot of situations we've gone through that you truly think are going to break you at moments. You're just like, this will break me, and I've had many wrestling moments with God, I'm like, God, you really got to take this, I know that I cannot, I know that you are going to have to take this weight or this load or this next thing as we jump in and try to make this work. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing, is how much I've been able to grow in my own identity and walk with the Lord, and strengthening those roots so that I don't waver. And I'm so quick to just lean on him and get scripture and truth into me, because it's definitely not for the faint of heart. There is a lot of hardships that come along with it. But at the end of the day, I always tell Andrew that I would never change the growth. And I almost feel like it was accelerated growth at times with my relationship with God, because that's what really has got both of us through this. And definitely, I know for myself, I don't want to speak for him, but
yeah. I mean, you do you do learn resiliency, whether you're ready to or not, in a lot of ways. Which I think we'll probably get into more. But it's just, if you don't, as a Christian in the military world, it's a different dynamic, because it's a lot of times it's still a bit of the a good old boys club, and it's just guys, just even good old boys club, there's a lot of women too, but even everybody, men and women, will get into partying and doing things they shouldn't, and it's just kind of like, oh, we're all friends, you're all hanging out, and you can easily erode at your Christian values, slowly or quickly, depending on how well prepared you are. So I'm sure we'll get into more of that, but the resiliency will get forced upon you, and whether you react appropriately or not.
Do you get a lot of support when you travel, when you're based in different countries? From an official capacity, do they give support to you and the family, but also from sort of unofficial, from the community at large, when they're living on or off the bases? Is there a lot of support there for all of you?
There is, yeah. There's, they have, I don't know if all the branches call it, but the Navy calls them ombudsmen. So they have somebody dedicated at home to support all the wives and families and to get them the resources they need and that kind of stuff. And then when you're deployed, there's always a chaplain available. There's a lot of mental health and obviously medical and dental and that kind of support. But all of that is it's only available if you ask for it or if you want it, you know. So if you think for whatever reason, no, I'm fine, or I don't need it or whatever, like they're not gonna come find you. You have to kind of reach out to them. So the onus is on you still.
So
Yeah,
Tayler, you mentioned the word identity, and I think I'm just thinking for you as a wife, you are not in the Navy. You're not. It isn't your work. It's not your focus. So your focus is you are there, may I say, because your husband is, right? You are there as a mother. You're there as a wife. Have you ever struggled with identity because Andrew is on the move? You're following him. You're wherever he goes, and you are the recipient of that. Has that ever? How do you handle that and not lose who you are?
Yeah, it's definitely it was a difficult one, especially because when he went in, we were really young. So we were married at 22. I was 22 when we got married and he joined. So I felt so young. And at the time, you're still, I think, figuring that out, right? And now, I mean, hindsight is always 20/20. But I remember at the time, the support, I'm using quotes, the support we would get was really they would be like, well, you knew what you were marrying into, or you knew. And I'm like, I'm sorry. That's like telling a parent or somebody about their job, like, oh, well, you knew what you were getting into, so deal with it. Like, no, everybody still doesn't know how to raise kids. Nobody really knows how to do their job half the time. Like, you have to learn. Like, you don't know. You really never understand or fully get the grasp of what it is. And we also got married, not like he wasn't in. He got into the military later, like a little bit into our marriage. But so for me, I'm like, you never know these things. And it is difficult because you don't understand. Military wives tend to struggle a lot in giving up because for a lot of us, we're educated. We have degrees, we had careers. And so for us, when we are just picking up and moving and moving and moving and moving, it almost makes it very difficult for us to do what we felt our passions were, our callings were, our skill set is. And that is a struggle because there's times where you're like, but I can do so much more, but I will be at home, and there is this really real struggle that occurs. Or I know for me, it was, I had all the capabilities of working, but of course I was going to stay home with the kids because he was in and out. So someone had to be stable. So it wasn't that I didn't love being home, but I struggled because I wanted to do so much more. I felt called to do more. And now I know it just wasn't my season. I do a lot now, but I wrestled with God, when will you use me how I thought I should be used, right? And God was like, I'm using you exactly how you're supposed to be used. You are raising these children for me and the next generation and these warriors. And it was having to change that mindset of my season and what God had called me to now. But it is a real struggle. And that is why I say I had to dig so deep into God and really understand what he's asked me to do, what he's called me to do, so that I don't get wrapped into the world of you should have a job or you can do this or women can do it all, which is, we can do a lot, guys. I'm just going to point that out there. But we really need to be focused on what God has called us to do. And it needs to look right for our family and what he's called our family to. And I think we can get wrapped up quickly into what the world says we should do and what our house should look like and run. And yeah, because we ran into those issues even within our own families. They really didn't understand or necessarily agree with all of our decisions all the time.
So people are usually kind of on a long-term path of either being, in inverted commas, a single parent or being parents together. But what is it like being for both of you to flip in and out of that? And for you, Andrew, you've been a single man and then you come back to being a married man and you come back to being a father, and Tayler has the house running.
Not officially, but in
I'm talking about
in practice.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the lifestyle that you're living. And then things are running in the home, and then you come back and you're the head of the home. How do you play out all these changing dynamics? Is it something you learn? Is it a different rhythm from what we're used to? How does that play out?
Yeah,
For
it's
both of you?
definitely a different rhythm. And we'll see, what the rhythm will be like this next time I deploy. But like my first deployment, I've only deployed twice actually, and it's been
You mean without the family?
without the family. Yeah, so it's been 6 years. I did small debts, for weeks or a month or whatever.
Months, yeah.
But like full on 6-8 month deployments. But yeah, the kind of the way I guess the deployments are designed, and I don't know if they're deliberately like this or it's just kind of the natural progression of how it is. Because you go out, you deploy, like everything's taken care of you. Like they have places that'll do your laundry. You just walk into the cafeteria, get your food. There's whatever different types of entertainment, a little movie theater or whatever. So you kind of naturally become more selfish on deployment, not intentionally, but just because the military wants you to just focus on your job. Like we'll take care of everything, your food and all that. Your wife's back home, they have support and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of naturally built in that you become selfish in a lot of ways. So coming back
probably them doing your washing is because they realize it would take them too long to teach the men how to do the washing. So they're like, no, there's just too much money to get that one figured out. We'll just do it for them. They don't have a clue what they're doing.
Or breaking all the machines or like.
Where does this go in the plane? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so obviously you get, kind of spoiled in a lot of ways. I'm not saying deployments are easy because they are definitely hard and, long hours and rigorous and that kind of stuff. But the day-to-day, regular life operations are a lot easier. And so, yeah, coming home, it is stressful for a lot of guys. And a lot of guys like being on deployment because it is a lot simpler of a lifestyle. And a lot of wives like the men being on men deployments. That's another topic, I guess. Right?
Because it's a simpler lifestyle. Right?
Because you do come home and the whole, like the family got in a good rhythm, of doing whatever they're doing. And then you come home and the rhythm's completely gone and there's no structure anymore. At least, it takes weeks or months maybe to kind of get back in a rhythm. And the husbands are stressed out because they're not used to having to deal with bedtimes or crying babies or whatever it is. And so it does create a very difficult transition when you do come back home. But it's one of those things you just figure out a way to prepare for it and start getting ready and finding and communicating with your spouse on how to handle it. Because if the guy will come home and if he gets stressed out, you don't want him to be blowing up on the kids because they're excited to see dad but then he's getting frustrated. And so communicating with your wife on what the plan is on how to kind of reintegrate together and communicate through it thoroughly and just figure out the best plan and whatever that works for anybody, to slowly get involved in different things or however you want to work it out. But it's definitely something that has to be communicated. And I think that's, I don't know. I don't remember how was our coming home. Well, the first one, it seemed pretty good. The second one, there's other issues going on.
Second one was extremely complicated. Because we had our third child just days after he arrived. So, we had a lot going on. And then we had just a lot of our own marriage was really on the brakes. So for us, it was like we had a lot happening on that second one. But I do think it is something that, like myself as a wife, I've had to be very conscious about because it is easy for us to not want to hand over the hat. It is easy for us to want to stay the everything. Like we have a structure, we know what we're doing, and like you just have to come in line, right? And that is typically a lot of our mindsets. I'm not going to lie. And so it's been hard. Like it is hard for me because I try not to have that mindset. I want to make sure that when he comes home, the kids know like he is the one who's head of the home. He's always been head of the home, even on deployments. And so there are times like where if there's serious things, we'll bring him in on it. Like your dad's not gone. Like he may not physically be here, but he is still head of the house. And so having to learn how to make those things still very apparent. And I think this last year has probably been really good for us because he had been leaving for a month here, 6 weeks here. And we just made him still very a part of it as much as we could. That just because he wasn't physically there, he was still going to, back mom up and not do it alone. So just having to be really mindful of making sure they understand that like hierarchy, like we are still a team, whether you see both of us together or not, we are a team.
And it's helped, within recent years. And even when my first deployment back in 2012, Skype and FaceTime and those types of things are around. And so it makes it a lot easier to see the kids and have them see you and that kind of stuff and stay involved. And if a kid is having some sort of discipline issue, the dad or I can talk to them and, and kind of work it out with them and help Tayler out so she doesn't have to do all the disciplining and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it's not always the case. Like we don't always have communication, and there are other spouses that, their husbands are on ships or sons or, like things like that, and they don't have those communications. So it's not always as simple as for him and I, where we do have more communication. But again, like I'm not gonna be able just to call him when those situations are happening. So having a game plans for us of how we set those up are really important. And also that's not the only reason we talk. Like we've had those conversations too, that I'm not going to call him and just be like, this is everything that's wrong and figure that out and go yell at everybody on this call, because that's just going to stress him out. It's really not healthy for anybody at that point. So we've had those conversations like, hey, please, if we're going to talk, like, let's have a structure to that if there is an issue, and so that no one person is being bombarded.
So really, looking at this, you have reset times. You have reset when you go away, you have reset when you come back, you have reset. And very often with marriage and with parenting, you just drift along and you do it and you make improvements. But on the plus side, you have definite times when you have to reset, reevaluate and reposition really, which if you take that time can be a very healthy thing in marriage and parenting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes I'm like, this is a great reset. And then other times I'm like, this reset button I think is like stuck or something. Like we are resetting every 30 days or something, Yeah. So there's those moments as well.
So interesting. I know your children are young, but do particularly your boys who are the older two, how do they view your life, Andrew? Because the role model is the same-sex parent is the strongest role model, and I know it's too soon to tell in many ways, but do they give any indications whether they see the life in the Navy as something to be aspired to? Or how do they see it?
Well, to start, I think they always thought I was just in the Army.
They literally said it the other day.
They're still learning the difference between them all.
Okay.
They haven't known too much of what I do, but I think they are both interested, in the Navy and that kind of stuff, and we'll coach them through it. But they. I don't know.
Well, we are currently on a base where they are remembering a lot more. And so even when when the things go off outside, what is that?
Oh, the retreat and the.
I feel like I should know these things, but
play the national anthem.
The national anthem will go off in the morning.
Just to clarify, you weren't asking Andrew what that music is that goes off, and that was the national anthem. Just to.
It's not. They play the national anthem, but they call it colors. And
what's that thing where we all stand up for? What's the?
That sounds awful. Okay, I understand the music. I meant I know there's names to these things that occur, right? So when they go off, everyone stops. Even cars, they stop driving on base. Everything stops, and the kids have just found such enjoyment when that occurs that even when we're inside the house, when you do not have to stop, they're like, everybody stop, and they stop and and they put their hands over their hearts, like they're just, or they try to salute, like Andrew. And it's really been sweet to watch that they are having a very different understanding and respect to it at the moment while we're on base. So that's been kind of fun to see grow.
Yeah, because I mean it's been a while, I guess, because the boys were 4 and 2 when we left Washington, and that was the last time I was really like noticeably involved in the Navy, when I was flying and all that kind of stuff. Because when we went out to England, like we were living in the village there, and the kids almost never went onto base, and my job technically wasn't even with the Navy and all that kind of stuff, and so they didn't know too much. And then in Phoenix, we're in the reserves now, so they don't see it really at all. But yeah, and now that we're on like these long-term orders, they're starting to see it more. But we did take them. So we're in Maryland, and the Naval Academy's in Maryland, down in Annapolis, about 20-30 minutes away. So we've taken them there, and Isaiah did say that, he's like, oh, maybe I'll try to play soccer for the Naval Academy and that kind of stuff. But then you ask him the next day, and he's like, no, I don't want to do that. But
I was about to say, good lad, keeping that soccer going.
Yeah.
Soccer game
he still absolutely loves soccer. Maybe he'll try to play for the academy. I don't know. But
have they lost the English accent?
Yeah, although they can turn it on a little bit if they want, which is good. So I told them to save that. That'll come in handy when they're 15.
You get free sandwiches, things like that.
It's so bad. He's like, you can use this. I'm like, stop.
You get discounts in certain shops, and there are certain bonuses that come with the English accent in America. That's a whole other podcast episode.
So if you were talking to a young yourselves when you were 22 and then you were way back there, or you saw a young couple who are about to embark on the lifestyle that you have, what would you say to them? They come to you and say, my husband's about to go into the forces, we're about to come, we're probably going to have children.
Or the wife might be enlisting.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of them as they are in their
from their experience.
Yeah. So what would you say to them? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so
I'm like, run. No,
we're
not saying that.
The first thing I usually say is you should try to become an officer.
It is.
It's just a lot easier lifestyle. And on top of that, you get paid better and more respect, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But not that enlisting's bad, but you can still serve, and still you don't have to sacrifice money to serve. If you have the option, if you have a college degree or near one, and stuff, and there's you can fly, like you can't fly as an enlisted, and that's what I did. So I always recommend try to become an officer. Flying is always a cool option. But then so that's kind of my initial thing, and then kind of talk through that. But then the next thing I would get into, especially if it's somebody from like our church, like the whole Christian thing is get into, it's a rewarding career and that kind of stuff, but it's going to come with challenges. You will be tempted in ways you kind of may not be prepared for. So let me prepare you. Like I was saying, like the good old boys club, like if you're, for my first deployment, I grew up a Christian. I grew up in a stable home and didn't get into any trouble, didn't, drink or do drugs or any of that kind of stuff. And then same on we got married, things were going smooth. Went on my first deployment, you couldn't do anything where I was. So it made it easy. But then my second deployment, right before my second deployment, my career started kind of like waning, and I kind of got frustrated. And so my mindset was kind of just like, well, I'm just going to go out and have fun, just kind of see what happens. And I didn't prepare myself earlier when things were going smoothly. I wasn't preparing myself for when things don't go well. Like I was naive enough to think things will just keep going smooth, like it'll be fine, which it'll never be fine forever. You will have these struggles and that kind of stuff. And if you don't prepare ahead of time and have some sort of game plan or have God's word written thoroughly through your heart and in your mind, you get to a point where you're frustrated with something and you make the wrong decision. And yeah, sure, that wrong decision is bad, but you continue on that path and things get, worse and worse and worse. And you get into a really, really bad place, and you're doing going to places you shouldn't, and talking to people you shouldn't, and creating relationships you shouldn't, and that kind of stuff. And so I definitely tell them, like, start preparing now. Like, these issues or these hurdles may not come for 2 years or 5 years or 8 years, but they will come. So, think about it now, and think about how you can develop the strength to fight off those temptations and get through it before they come up. Because when the moment comes, you could be in too deep, or you could just not have the willpower, and you just give in and do whatever feels right at the time, which just doesn't go well. So
that's good. What would you say, Taylor?
What was the question? I'm so sorry.
What would you say to somebody who's just embarking on the lifestyle that you have?
I have like similar sentiments. Definitely for me, and kind of like something that him and I have talked about too, is it kind of all goes back to where you're rooted and that identity. Like, I would really be making sure that you're preparing yourself, that you are truly in the Word. And again, this is for obviously those that know Christ, because this is not an easy lifestyle to go into. And when those things hit us, they hit us hard. And for Andrew, something that kind of bring it back to identity, I remember when he did make a lot of choices that affected us all very negatively. And it was hard. And I remember afterwards him telling me about his whole identity was kind of wrapped into his work. And when that started to go downhill, it was just it was a spiral, right? And that is typically what happens when we wrap ourselves in the wrong things. If we wrap our identity in our husbands and then they leave or they disappoint us, or we wrap it in our children and they're disobedient or embarrass us, or, whatever. We can't wrap it in the wrong thing, and because we will spiral. And so for me, I'm very huge advocate of making sure that you personally are strong in your own walk, and that it doesn't hinge on anyone else, because many times you will be by yourself, most of the times. And so a lot of times you do see a lot of the support for the military people, but the spouses don't get the same respect and support, I would say. Like if Andrew was getting on a flight by himself, like all the respect in the world. I'm getting on a flight with all the kids trying to move us all back. It is like, oh my goodness, like I cannot say no to these people. You need to get them away from me. Can you move them? Did I just see their child like make a noise? And it's a very different level of what he gets and what I get. And so we cannot hinge stuff on other people's reactions, how other people view us. Like everything has to be very rooted in where we stand and our own faith and how much we have God's word like hidden in our own hearts. So my biggest thing is always just to go and dig in and like know your true identity with Christ, because this can definitely crumble and fall quite quickly. And I think we learned that very fast after his second deployment, when everything did crumble for us because of decisions made. And we're super open about that. That is something like we could even share as one of the resources, is that we are a rare case in the military, like that we faced, the infidelity. We faced a lot of these things and are still here. That's not typically your story. So for us, we're huge advocates of preparing yourself so that you can avoid some of our heartaches that we went through, or also giving hope that if you have gone through this, that God does restore and he does have restoration. And for us, because I'm thinking, geez, that was almost 7 years ago now, and we have 3 more kids, and a lot has happened since we went through those initial heartaches. And not that those things were done overnight, because again, that is a walk. That was a personal walk between both of us, of me having to grow and him having to grow. So it wasn't like an overnight restoration. This has been years of healing and walking with God and having our own our own walks with Christ. And so mine is not wrapped in his is not wrapped in mine. So yeah.
Well, what you've just said is a great wrap up really for any marriage and any family. And thank you for being vulnerable with that, because I think so often we see people and we go, oh, well, they just sailed through it all, where no marriage sails through it all. No marriage goes on without there being problems and challenges to face along the way. And like you say, the message of hope is you can come through, you can build healthy families, you can build healthy marriages, and you don't have to be completely sidetracked by the problems, challenges, and even the mistakes of either spouse in any situation. At all. So thank you for sharing that, both of you. And we love you both. We love your family. And we'd love to see you again. And yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to say one thing. Can I just share one scripture really fast?
Yes,
I would say
do.
It's a scripture I feel has got me through many times in this type of lifestyle. But it's Romans 12:12. And it's be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. And I just feel that sums up marriage, that sums up parenting, that sums up this military lifestyle, because there's been many times we have had to be patient in affliction, and I've had to be joyful in the hope of restoration, and I've had to be very faithful in prayer. And so for me, that's always the scripture I just run to, because when it is hard and we are just like not sure where we're at, I'm just like, I got to be patient in this affliction, and I'm going to just lean even more into prayer, and I'm just going to hope into what God's word is, right? And so that scripture has always been a really big one and near and dear one to my heart. So
thank you.
Andrew, Tayler, thank you so much. We appreciate you both. We hope we get to see you again sometime soon. But thank you so much for taking the time and coming to talk to us. We really appreciate it. And we'll have to have you back on, and we can dive into some other subjects and dive deeper even into these topics as well, and give more helpful tips for people that are living that kind of lifestyle. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us on, guys.
Yeah, thank you. It's good. Nice seeing you guys again.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If it inspired you, please rate us and subscribe on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or another podcast platform.